Ka-chow, homebrew community.
What's up, my homie brewers?
This is TC, Travis Campbell.
And I'm Big Mike Persine, and you're listening to Brew Strong.
Brew Strong. All right, it's Travis and Mike here again while Jamil's away. We're going to do another Q&A today. And as previously warned, but if you're like me, sometimes you roll backwards. Uh, the quality of the humor will definitely drop off in Jamil's absence, but we're going to try to keep the technicalities up really high. Do our best on that one, and we'll work on the humor too. I mean, try to put in some more dick jokes. Talk about I don't have a medical corner or none I'd like to share, but if you ever come up with a
I,
medical corner, you could throw one in, Mike.
I got a dead toenail. I don't. I'll try to. I was gonna say I want to channel my inner 13-year-old. So get
Maybe we
ready
come
for some
back to that. I like that.
immaturity.
All right, and as usual, I want y'all to keep in mind, Blickman Engineering, they bring you this show, they pay for it, so you don't have to. Although when you do pay for it, Justin appreciates that also. You're supporting the Brewing Network both ways. So, we had Drew on a show not that long ago. Drew is the current president
Awesome
operating,
guy.
absolutely, huh? Operating Blickman. And go catch that show. It's not a commercial. It's a great discussion with a guy who's really supporting us homebrewers. And
Yeah,
don't be jealous because he makes pro stuff too. We all grow up to that
yeah.
one day, we hope. You know,
I would say it's a great look at behind the scenes of their operation. You're gonna get some Blickman inside baseball. That podcast is for you.
absolutely. And if you're not using any Lickman gear, I don't know how the hell you're making it through your brew day. And if you are, you know how great the products are. I mean, and I don't know what they don't make, honestly. I think about what I have in my house. They don't have the Blickman igloo,
Yeah,
but
they should start making like just everyday stuff. Like I want to Blickman innovating your brew day coffee or something.
huh, huh,
But I was going to talk a little about my Rims rocket.
yeah,
It's this amazing product. I bought the 110 one, and I'm doing 10-gallon batches with a 110 volt, and I can step a mash in a matter of minutes. It's
wow.
awesome, super straightforward, low watt density on the coil, so
Mhm.
scorching your mash is not a concern. Just a really great product. I mean, built like a stainless steel S house, shit house. I can. This is rated PG-13. I can say that. So
And until
yeah,
Justin tells us no, let's keep with it.
I I really do love that product. It was one of the first things I bought. So when I was for my 10-gallon size brew house, I was like, I really want one of those. I was really intrigued by Rim's technology over Herms and
Mhm.
direct fire and direct heating because I really wanted that precision and control of my mash, and it definitely brought it. So and it's kind of nice at the 110. It's a lower voltage. If you've got a 15 amp outlet, I mean, boom, you're in game. So
Very
you don't
cool.
have to have 230 stuff. You can run it on regular plugs, which I thought was pretty intriguing to me as well. So that's my little plug for my Blickman of the week.
Very cool. I like that. All right. So you want to tell us about this toenail now, or you want to save that for later?
Want to tell me about what?
About this toenail.
Oh, yeah, I was wearing a pair of shoes and I don't know what happened, but now they're purple. The one is purple. I think it's dead. I
All right.
haven't touched.
So,
I'm just in denial. So this is Mike's medical corner slash shame fest. What else I got?
I don't think we're ready to finish that story
I think
just
that's good
yet.
enough to call it.
All
Can we
right.
cut this
So
out, Justin?
if I didn't mention it, this is Q and A, and if you're listening live, this is the second one in a row. And if you're not, it's been 2 weeks since you heard our wonderful voices, but we're glad you joined us anyway. All right. So let's start off with a short question. I had one queued up. There it goes. All right. Matt writes in, "Hey guys, love the show. I was listening to the archives and enjoyed one on kit brewing. You were saying not to add the LME until the end of the boil. You said to start with the DME. What if the kit only comes with LME? I have a kettle to do full boil. Should I just shorten the boil? Then I wasn't sure what to do about the hop additions and the specialty grains that got steeped. I think the long boil might be the reason the first batch that I brewed came out so dark for light ale. I enjoyed the shows, and they were instrumental in me deciding to brew. Matt. All right. So, Mike, when's the last time you brewed with extract as an extract style brew day?
So I have a deep dark secret. I'm a malt extract virgin. I've only
Ever.
ever used it to make starters.
Interesting.
I took brewery science at UC Davis and
Mm-hmm.
learned
Mm-hmm.
all grain brewing from the start. So that was my first experience brewing, was in a laboratory environment, I guess you, or like a practical, they have the big pilot brewery there at Davis. And so I actually never used um, malt extract other than for starters. And I really don't have a whole lot to input on this. So I'll leave it to you.
All right, so let's see how I can mangle this question and what answers I can come up with then. So Matt, I have not brewed with extract in quite a while, other than I do keep some DME on hand, trying to hit my targets. Sometimes if I'm like a point low here and there, I'll add some DME because I don't know, for some reason I'm stuck on this beer is going to be 9%. It's going to be 9%, damn it, if not 9.5. No way it's going to be 8.8. So I did not go back and listen to that show to try to determine. But I can tell you, when I was doing extract with largely liquid, very little dry, uh, I didn't delay on adding it. I can see how if you're doing a reduced volume boil, that thick could be problematic, to be honest with you. If you're doing a 3 gallon boil for a 5 gallon beer and then you add a lot of this goopy liquid, that boil is going to want to jump out the pot on you. It's the same thing as making a very huge beer. The viscosity of the wort is just problematic. So that could be good advice for adding that liquid malt extract late versus early. Better advice would be let's get better at brewing and do a full volume boil, and then you don't have to worry about it. And then let's get one step further and go to all grain, largely because you have the control. Also, Jamil has proven you can make extract beer outstanding beer, but you have to know that your extract is fresh. It doesn't age the same as a sack of grain. A sack of grain, you can hang on to it for a while. You can't sit on your extracts. So
Especially LME, I've heard is very finicky. Liquid
liquid,
malt
yes,
extract, yeah, that
exactly.
stuff will go bad quick.
Yeah, it changes. If you want to say bad or good, it's not changing in a good way, Mike.
Right.
But so I would get past the need of that in general. But if you're doing the liquid, you have to be concerned about how viscous you're making your wort, because it's going to not be a fun boil, and you're going to hold a lot of heat in. You're going to heat stress your wort. These are all things that are far too complicated for someone who's using liquid to be concerned with. If you're asking questions like you're ready to go to the next step. So I would say
Yeah.
let's go to the next step and put it behind us. Otherwise, don't worry about the why as you're doing it, as long as you're making decent beer. And if you're a kit brewer, if you're an extract brewer and you're making decent beer, that's probably good enough. I mean, it'd be good enough for me. Um, I gave you more opinion than answer on this one, and I apologize, Matt, if that's not exactly what you were looking for.
Yeah.
Um, don't shorten the boil. I mean, when I think of it, I brew hoppy styles, um, and most of those hoppy styles have bittering hops. So I'm looking at a 60-minute boil minimum on everything I do. I can't shorten
Hmm.
that. If I'm brewing that style of beer. Um, so
Yeah,
yeah,
I was gonna say, in terms of like the DME and LME freshness as a thing, um, I like to think of malt as like kind of coffee. So when you buy coffee roasted, ready to go whole bean, that stuff keeps way better, right? Like it doesn't get all stale and gross and taste weird and start to not be good to make coffee with. I believe it's the same exact thing with barley malt. The second you crack that malt or you process it further than its natural kind of husked state, you're on the clock, and you really want to make sure if you are still doing DME or LME that you're getting it fresh. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe a lot of the award-winning beers Jamil would make was with only DME. I don't believe he used a whole lot of LME. So
I
I've
don't think
also
he
heard
was
mixed
competing when
reviews
he
on
played
using
around with
LME.
it.
Just oh, go ahead. What?
I don't think he was competing when he was playing around with it. I believe he was already pro, and he decided to prove to himself that he could make great beer with kits. So
Okay.
he did.
I remember hearing like because that's kind of why brewing classic styles is all those recipes are in extract recipes because they will win awards even with extract. So, but
Right.
as far as I remember off the top of my head, looking through that book, and I've read most of it just because I've tried to brew every one. Uh, I don't see a whole lot of LME. I think he's more on the, and I could be wrong. We should ask him when he comes back. But
Yeah. So, another way to break it down, most of the times LME is your base malt, and your DME is all your colored malts. It I don't know if that's intentional, but usually what you'll see, like I buy uh, Breeze Pills and Light to use in my starters, and that's the same thing I'll use if I'm a point or two low on my gravity. Breeze Pills and
okay,
Light, the lightest that exists. But if you want to make a Doppelbock, the Munich extract, that's a liquid. You can't get it in a powder.
okay,
So you find that your more specialty grain extracts, and they're all blends, they're going to be your liquids.
okay,
And you can get your base grains as liquids also, but usually if it's a dry extract, if it's going to be a base grain extract. So
right,
so Matt, if you're going to follow the advice, follow it to the T. If you don't have an LME and a DME, add it add it where the advice stated, and don't worry about it unless you think it's causing a problem for you on your beer. And keep brewing, man. And that's
yeah.
how we take the shortest questions and make them into long questions.
Long story long.
All right, so we're gonna take a break, and we're gonna be right back with more of your questions. And we're back.
Up. I'm Mike.
All right.
I talk about beer. I like drinking it.
Yeah,
My toes
we,
purple.
we don't know why
I
yet. We're going to revisit when we get the why on that one. All
told you,
right,
man.
something about the shoes. We hear from Alex as follows. Hello, guys. Love the shows, in parentheses, shows. I've just started listening, so there's a lot of catching up to do. My questions are related to storing your beer. Jamil mentioned that he puts his beer up for months, if not years. So I know he was doing it in a converted shed at one point. Where is he storing it now? At the brewery. If he is storing your beer in corny kegs, how often is he checking them to see if they've come into peak freshness? I'm assuming he is storing them under proper carbonation pressure and checking on that pressure every now and then. How do you draw off samples? Just hook up a Cobra tap and try a taster? Thanks for any help you can offer. Signing up for the BN Army now. That's right, Justin. Alex is your guy. Cheers, Alex. All right, I'm going to add one preamble to this, Mike, and I'd love to know your thoughts. Jamil said, brew your big beers big and your hoppy beers and smaller beers small and drink them fast. He wasn't sitting on IPAs for 9 months to 9 years. Uh, so, Mike, give us your thoughts on celery and beer in general, and anywhere you'd like to approach this.
Well, for me, my beer doesn't stick around too long. I am a avid beer drinker, so I would say there are certain styles that do love a longer rest. Those dark beers, like you're talking about, big beers, love that to lay them down almost like wine and let them just
Mm-hmm.
age. And kind of
Mm-hmm.
like if you listen to the episode before this, we were talking about aging beers and how that can help mature flavors and bring you know the beer into focus, if you will. And so I think yeah, the big alcohol, big color, uh, you know, beers. Some people throw them in a barrel. They sell little 5 gallon barrels you can do too, and
Mhm.
lay it down for 8 months, and you can end up with this barrel aged stout or barley wine. So I'm all for that. I mean, but like you said, with light lagers, light beers, light ales, hoppy beers. I mean, especially hoppy beers, I can speak to. They do have a very short life because those hop flavors are very volatile and they don't last very long and they tend to really fade after a certain point. So you want to make sure that you're not allowing that to happen and either sharing it or consuming it in a timely manner. I'd say if you're keeping it in a keg, make sure you're not leaving it tapped because that's going to ruin it. I would say if you're canning bottling, no longer than 4 to 6 months if you're able to keep them refrigerated properly. So kind of run out of, they start to run out of gas, they start to lose flavor, get pretty bland, lose their aroma. So
So, Mike,
yeah.
would you prefer to age in a corny, or would you prefer to age packaged?
See, I like to age in a keg because I can taste it and check it, and I'm not using a whole can or something. And
Hmm. Hmm.
um, I like that if you do unhook it from the beer tap, and you kind of leave, if you can leave it on CO2 and you trust you're not leaking your CO2 everywhere, you can really maintain the freshness of that in a stainless steel vessel. That's where I leave it, and that's where I age all my beers is in the keg. But
Hmm.
um, when they go in the can, I try to like that's what I want it to taste like when you open it. Like
Yep.
I'm locking it in because usually they're going to get shaken, they're going to get messed around, they're going to warm up, cool down, and you
Hmm.
don't really want to have them in the middle of their aging process where they could leave a bunch of sediment or things in the bottom. I'm a big guy on I hate when I get to the bottom of a beer and there's a bunch of stuff in the bottom of it of a
Yeah.
can. So
Yeah.
that's me though. That's a personal thing. So, but that's kind of what my way of doing it.
So that's great advice, Mike. Let me build on that a little bit here and there, and also give you some feedback on some of what Alex had asked. So one thing at Heretic, the second location, the big location, his real brewery versus his shared proprietorship brewery, they had a very large cold room, full of beer for distribution and full of beer for aging. Uh, I mean, drive a forklift in it, cold room, very nice, in the back of the brewery. So that's how he was storing beer, at Heretic. That wasn't in a barrel. I mean, I can't tell you in the few times I've made it to the brewery that I've ever seen packaged beer at room temp. That wasn't a thing unless he was packing enough to go out the door. Like wrapping some kegs, wrapping some
Hmm.
cases, stuff like that to go out the door. Okay, so let's get to storing in corny kegs versus packaging. I don't mind bottling the beer that I'm going to age and letting it age, uh, but it gets tricky if you're going to compete with it because you are going to get a sediment. And if it's a tight sediment at the bottom, shouldn't bother anybody. But if it's not so tight, someone's pouring that in their glass, and that's what you're judging your beer by. So aging before bottling, if you can, is advisable. If you can't, you can't. Package it up, set it aside. Uh, Maybe you want to bottle off a 12 pack and keep it at room temp to let some aging happen, and you don't want to do your whole keg that way, or you don't want to bring your keg into that room where it could make a mess.
Yeah.
So they'll both work, but you are going to settle out better in a corny and then package off a cleaner beer. And carbonation pressure, my kegs hold good pressure, most of them. So I can top them off and let them store. And I have a freezer that's not quite a keyser. It's not tapped. It's just beer storage. And I charge them up and I leave them in there, and they only get low on pressure as I tap them to pull a pint off. So storm carb, you want to keep as much out. And corny kegs, as crappy as they can be, the more pressure you keep on them, the better they keep pressure. You have to keep pressure against those seals for them to seal up sometimes because these cornies are older than us sometimes. These ones that we're putting our beer in, these cornies we picked
They
up.
are, yep, they can
Unless you
be.
unless you spend money on the brand new ones. Uh, Draw samples. Yeah, I have two Cobra taps that I keep that I pop on, pull a sample as I want to sample it, or as I call it, draw a pint and drink it. That's my samples. Yeah, couple Cobra taps that I swap around keg to keg, pull a sample, pop it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Alex, many ways you can go there, and it's not going to go wrong. And a little bit of insight to what was happening. And if you didn't make it to Heretic, uh, sorry you didn't make it, because I mean it's still there. It's not Jamil's anymore. It was quite the brewery, quite the brewery. And my understanding is it's in really good hands these days. They're on their third ownership now, and
Yeah, I heard about
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I was gonna say one last little last caveat. Bottle conditioning. Obviously, you're trying to do all of your aging and conditioning in the bottle, so that's a total, that is where you want to do that. Some people don't have kegs. I mean, so then a sediment's kind of required, but I mean, honestly, my best results with Hefeweizen was when I bottle conditioned. So some beers really respond well to bottle conditioning. So there's also
And,
that
and
to consider.
if they pour your hef, or somebody pours your hef in a glass, and the hef is hazy, well, gee, that's what I wanted. No big deal.
Right.
So disturbing a little bit of sediment, keeping some sediment in there, because even a hef's going to fall brighter than you think over time. Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
going to not going to stay quite that. I mean, when they serve them in
I've,
Germany, they mix them up a little bit.
I've been unable to produce a colloidal haze with any kind of Hefeweizen. I think the wheat fraction's way too high. If you're doing one
So
that's true German.
first hef, and I'll keep this short. I think first hef, I only have maybe I've had in Germany. I mean, I've had a lot of beer in Germany, but most of it's not Bavarian styles. And first hef I had in Germany about 1995. And as the bottle was getting towards the bottom, and it looked like a malt liquor bottle almost. It was a very interesting bottle. I don't know. So
Hmm.
they put it on the side. They did the rolling action, and he topped it off. So there's no telling how non-colloidal that beer might have been had he not disturbed it. But that was
Yeah.
part of his process.
Yeah. A lot of people will, yeah. When I even do it with my cans, I store them upside down for Hef. The
There you
cans
go.
are upside down, and everybody's like, "What
Mm-hmm.
the hell is upside?" It's like, nope, that's because I think to be true to this style, the haze is definitely not as permanent as my hazy. So
Agreed.
yeah.
All right. Uh, Kevin writes, "Hey guys, just moved into Dixon, California, or Canada.
Hey, that's right where Canada or
And it's
California.
CA. Sounds like it's California because I don't know. It's
All
California.
right, Dixon's like 5 minutes away from Davis.
There you go.
Yeah, I know where
Okay,
that
so
is.
yeah, I am looking to get a brew set up again after selling off a three-vessel kegel system. Military family with several moves left me no choice but to downsize. Thank you for your service, Kevin.
Yeah.
I've been seeing several automated brew in a bag systems hit the market in the past couple of years and wondered if you have already done a side by side comparison. I think it might make for a good show. There are Cadillacs, mid range, and economics. Cheers, Kevin. So, Kevin, it would be a show or shows to go through all the details of all the brew in the bags. So, I think we can handle this with a question in the Q&A rather than doing a full on show on it. Mike, did you ever use a single vessel system?
I've used them with friends that have them. Like I've used a Brazilla a couple times. My
So
one buddy
I
has
think,
a Spike Solo, stuff like that.
yeah,
Most of them are the basket type single
yeah, yeah.
vessels.
So
Yeah.
I think if I start on this, you're going to have some good input on it because it's Kevin's asking specifically about the all in ones, and this is a bigger question. Uh, the short answer is they all offer something, and it depends on what you want to do with them. So if I mean we could do some YouTube gold where I compared the most expensive all-in-one to the cheapest all-in-one and said how the cheap one's crap just like you expected, and the most expensive one that they sent me for free, oh that one's gorgeous. Um,
Hmm.
they all have their pluses or minuses. And I went through this personally because I use the anvil, and the anvil price wise is mid range. Quality wise, I would say no. And Kevin does list a few brands and he classifies them, but his classifications are really about the cost of the unit than the value of the unit. Because I've brewed with friends on a Grainfather. I brewed in England on the Braumeister, and I brew all the time on my anvil. And I have the world's cheapest HLT that I love because it just heats water. It works. It's perfect. So you've got to figure out what bells and whistles you want. And I wish I had a good metaphor, or like when you talk about if your guitar's got built-in wah. I don't know. Does any guitar have built-in wah? What features do you need? What I needed for me, I wanted a unit that would do 120 and 240. That was one of my deciding factors, and that's Anvil. I
Yeah.
don't know other units you can buy 120 or 240. The Anvil is a flick of a switch. So if you might brew, like how cold it is by your place, Mike, you might brew in your kitchen in the winter, which my God, I'd be divorced. But then you might brew in your garage in the
Yeah. No.
summer,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So maybe you need 120 in the winter, and you want your 240 in the summer, and that's your deciding factor. Well, I didn't have a 240 outlet ready when I bought it, but I didn't want to limit myself. So I bought the 120/240 unit.
Yeah.
Maybe you like the way one unit circulates versus another. Like I said, I brewed on the Braumeister. Jamil and I, we did this neat thing at a place I can't remember the name of, and he would. It was a shop in England where you went and you paid and you brewed, and you could either come back in 2 weeks and get some of your beer, or you could take some homebrew somebody else brewed previously. And there were 10 Braumeisters set up, and then one just, I can't remember how we are heating it, but it was a 10-gallon system where we brewed a barley wine, and we treated this system like an all-in-one. We mashed in what looked like a 80 quart, 100 quart pot. We ran it off, we dumped it, we put it back in the pot, and we boiled it. Um, I got stories about it that are sidetracked. Maybe we'll get towards the end of this question because it was a fun, interesting evening. But those Braumeisters didn't seem that they had any advantage to a Grainfather. And this question, Grainfather, they keep upgrading their equipment. They keep adding features, Bluetooth, all this kind of stuff. Another feature I like is I like the ability to set my heater up on delay. I used to use a timer and some relays to do that with my sparge water in the past. But when you're doing it with your own home built parts, it's a bit more involved than if I can buy something where I can just put it in delay mode and come back out and my water's warm in the morning. So that was a feature I wanted. So it boils down to what features do you need to get through your brew day, what's worth you paying for. And and the reason why, Mike, I think you'll have some input is, first off, you brewed on two disparate systems, and second off, this applies to any kit, whether you're building it from scratch, whether you're buying it tiered. So
Yeah. Well, for me, I'm an engineer, so I always try to approach things the way I would from an engineer's perspective, and you are too. So I know you were kind of getting there. For me, it's like I kind of go out and look at what's out there and what are the options on the different brands and the different things. And then you kind of, that's kind of your review of the available technologies, right? This is what we're doing in engineering and consulting and stuff. And then I kind of go, well, what are my priorities? What are my have tos? What are my want tos? What's my budget? Kind of where you're at. And I was thinking as you were talking, you could buy these all-in-ones, but you can go all the way down to you've got your, like you said, your 15-gallon stock pot that people buy to do crawfish fry, crawfish boils. You got your crawfish boil burner, and you go buy a big bag of the big brewing bags, and that's the original brew in a bag, right? Where it's one
yeah.
vessel with your malts in a bag, and you pull the malt out. And some people do pulleys, some people do different ways of holding it above the thing, and just you do what's called a full volume mash where there's no sparge. And so
Mm-hmm.
you can do that. I mean, that's about as cheap as you can go on single vessel, but then it goes up from there, and then you kind of got to think about the features you want, like the amount of control that you'd like TC was saying. So for me, the systems I've used, I've really enjoyed the baskets, like where you can just pick it up and then you set it on its little ledges, and then
Mhm.
you don't need any other mechanisms. You don't need to be a professional weightlifter, and it kind of makes it like you can just wait. And then even like the Bruzilla has a function where you can sparge or you can recirculate to rinse the grain with the volume of the water, so that it's not, it kind of gets away from that no sparge to kind of like a mash rinse with the wort. And then some people you can even sparge with those setups where they have pumps and different things you can do. I really enjoyed the Spike Solo, but that is one of the more Cadillac systems where it has
Mhm.
you've got a basket, it's got a separate pump, and then it has a really nice control panel that you can really tinker with and set up to control your mash and your boil almost like a pro would, in terms of
Is
like
that
the screens and the what's
is
up.
that two larger pots? Is that similar to the Brew Easy?
No, it's more, it's kind of similar to like a Bruzilla, where it's got the
Okay.
basket that sits in the single
Okay.
vessel, and then you pick it
Mhm.
up and set it on it. But then it's more of like a true kettle, where the basket is also really nice stainless steel piece. And then
Mhm.
they actually have it's got a separate centrifugal pump. It's got heating elements that are you know easily accessible, which I know some of the other solo systems you can't do.
No,
Things
no,
like
most of them
that,
are built
and that's
in.
where
Yeah.
I'd highly encourage people to go out and cruise around, and don't get fixated on one, and really see what's out there, and then decide what you would like, and then kind of decide what you can afford, and then whittle down. I do that with pretty much everything I buy. Is I try to You got to make those decisions between, oh, I want this, but I really only need this, and well, so, and then my wife will divorce me if I buy this one,
Right. That's
and
a
so I
common
better
answer.
not. Like, yeah, it's like you know uh, everybody wants that. What is the Blickman Tower of Power? But you got to bring the Tower of Money.
Yeah.
It's not too bad, but it's
No.
different than if you got their single vessel anvil. It's just
It-
you got to make decisions. So
At one point in time, those two were the same price. The Tower of Power was the same price as the Anvil Foundry.
no, yeah, wow.
Yeah, I love my Anvil. If I had to replace it, I would go back with what I have because
Like buy
again,
another one. Yeah,
yeah. And if I go back to 10 gallons, I'm going to have to look at their larger Anvil because I'm
yeah,
so used to electric brewing and I'm so used to that system. I'm so used to be able to preset that time. I don't need Bluetooth. I mean, that's always neat. I mean, I can turn on fans and lights with my phone and stuff like that. I don't need to turn on my homebrew system. You may decide you need to. Maybe you set your alarm for 4 o'clock and you turn your heater on,
yeah,
element on, and you go back to sleep. But now with the adjustable power and actually the digital control of the power, it's 0 to 100%.
right.
Um, it's not a built-in pump, and I like that because that means if the pump dies, it's easily fixed or replaced. It's also easily accessed for cleaning.
Yeah.
But
No, and like for me, I like data logging. Like I really like to have that data
mm,
that I can, if I brew the same beer again, I can compare them and make sure that I was hitting. And then I like, just in general,
mhm.
temperatures and times and posterity. I'm a big on reproducibility, these kind of more uh engineering things. I don't know. I have like terrible habits, OCD. So that's why I built mine the way I did. But it is
So
it
yeah,
is kind of your preference. So
so uh, getting back. So Kevin, I'd love to give you a tighter advice. I'd love to tell you exactly what to buy. And Drew would love for me to tell you, hey, man, you got to buy the anvil. Um,
so buy the anvil. No, just kidding.
but if we run into each other one day, we could have a chat, and you could tell me what you're looking for in your system, and I can help you figure out which ones meet your needs because it's not what's best. It's like a car. I mean, Chevy guys hate Fords, and Ford guys hate Chevys. Um, I'm an Infinity guy. It's a preference thing, you
Yeah,
know.
no,
It
and it's a features thing. I think a lot of what you're
yes.
saying too is like there's something that is gonna really like the 110 to 220 for you. That was a
Hmm.
big feature that you were really loving, and I think
Yep.
that's something that the different brands have their different things. So
Yep. All right.
yeah.
So I think we've answered that one well enough. All right, let's do this. Let's take a short break, and we're right back at it with a few more questions. And all you gentlemen and gentle ladies in the chat, hit us with some questions. Even though I think,
Hit me with your best shot. I'll
yeah.
sing.
All right.
No, I won't. Maybe I will. Who knows? You got to ask the question.
If you want us to sing, we'll sing. If you don't want us to sing, we
I
might
didn't
sing
say
anyway.
I mean, you got to just,
That was good, Mike. All
it's
right, let's
entertainment.
take this break. And we're back. All right. So Mike, we discussed your toenail. I think that was fine. And last show you guys missed out, especially if you're not watching live. Mike makes outstanding NEPAs among other beers, and he's really been working on his effort in that. And he gave us a nice showcase, not a flavor, mind you, but a review of what his latest. Do you call it a pale hazy pale or pale
I
NEPA?
call it a hazy pale ale.
Hazy
I
pale.
didn't want to call it juicy pale ale because I used 100% Simcoe.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a hazy beer. It has the same kind of water profile and
Mm-hmm.
body and smoothness of a hazy IPA. Lower alcohol, a little more chill. But then I loved how the Simcoe played with the thiolized yeast. I used Cosmic Punch thiolizing yeast. We'll do a show on that maybe sometime soon. But kind of added that little bit of like, hey, this is a Simcoe beer, I can tell, but if I didn't tell you, you probably wouldn't have picked it as 100% Simcoe because of the thiolizing. So very interesting flavors. I was gonna send you one, TC, send you a couple maybe, because
Please.
yeah, and I actually named it. I call it Simcoe is life.
Nice.
Simcoe is life because
I like it.
I just like that name. So,
Yeah,
but
I'm
yeah,
I, I'm a fan of that hop. I'd love to see how it turned out with the biotransforming thiolizing yeast. I think and I've used those yeasts, but I haven't looked hard enough at the data. They start off with a yeast that's
British Ale
what is it?
5,
What
Boddington's.
is
British Ale
bots?
5 is the Omega
Oh,
name, but it's Boddington's.
okay. So
Juice,
I think that
lemon
yeast
fog.
before they thiolized it is already the beta liase, the linalool citrin, linalool
Yeah.
geraniol. So it already has that biotransformation towards citrus, and then they thiolize it, so it gives you the sulfur compounds also.
Yep.
And I hate that we call it sulfur compounds because the sulfur compounds we're most familiar with stink.
So
But
I
the
call them
beer sulfur
thiols.
comp, right?
Yeah, I don't sulfur compounds. I always
Sulfur
say yeah, like DMS and yeah, vegetal
H2S,
and cabbage. Yeah, H2S.
boiled eggs.
But no, I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
one right here. It still
Uh
doesn't
huh.
have a label yet. I got to
Uh
get them
huh.
going, but uh yeah, no, I think you'll like it. It's very surprising. I bought because my homebrew store they'll special order you yeast, but you got to order at least five.
Oh wow.
So I did all five of them were Cosmic Punch. I was like, I'm just gonna do like three or four beers all in a row. And
You're
so
not repitching on those, then, are you?
no, see, I don't really have
Okay.
I don't brew um as fast as I probably would have to really make repitching work for me.
Especially right now,
I
you said you
have
take a break over winter.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I have before, but I just,
Mm-hmm.
kind of got to where I always stuck by what Jamil said about repitching and yeast management is a whole nother hobby. And so I kind of wanted to make sure that I was focusing on brewing and fermenting and the recipe formulation stuff. And like I said, I'm only doing one beer at a time. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not really racking and stacking them. So I just kind
Yeah,
of pitch them. I'll start them and then pitch them. And then, yeah, I usually don't save, but
you're doing 10-gallon batches, though, right?
yeah. So
Yes.
I'm usually doing starters. I'm popping them up and
Mm-hmm.
getting them to the where I want them to be. Uh, yeah, and so I did that double hazy. I did a double hazy, and then I did this hazy pale ale, and then the last one I'm going to try is a thiolized cream ale with Nelson.
Nice.
I'm going crazy. I just
are you
kind of
gonna
want
do it in
to.
the 3.5 to 4 5% range? You're gonna do like more of an imperial cream, something a little bigger.
No, yeah, I was gonna do real light, 5%,
Okay.
probably 30% corn, and then the cosmic punch, and then I wasn't gonna dry hop it, but I was gonna definitely do a pretty big whirlpool
hmm
of Nelson and try to see where we end up. I kind of, was stepping from as juicy as I can go to let's see what's weird with Simcoe, and then let's do a stylized blonde ale with cosmic punch.
I like it.
So I'm
Very
having
cool.
fun. I'm having fun. I was talking to some pro brewers about this, and they're like, they kind of get all like, so you just do whatever you want? And I'm like,
That's
yeah,
always a fun
man.
conversation. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those guys, they're on schedules. They gotta hit their
Yes.
numbers. They gotta get beer out the door. And I'm just like, nah,
hmm
I'm just playing around. I'm like, do whatever I want.
I- I've had about half as many collabs or less than I would have had if they didn't always have to have a schedule. Like, oh man, I'd love to brew this beer. Like, oh, I'd love to brew it with you. I got to figure out when to fit it in the schedule.
Right? That's always the thing. They're like, oh, I'd love to make this, and then you never hear from them again, or they're just so busy every time. So
Yep,
yeah, I get it though. I mean, that's where I kind of us homebrewers have it made, man.
we do. All
Yeah.
right. So Luke says, hey guys, just want to start by saying love the show. Sorry. Started out brewing 2 years ago using the pre-hopped kits. Uh, got into all grain about a year ago and learned basically everything I know from listening to this show. That's outstanding. Have recently had a discussion about dry hopping with a few brew buddies and was given this link. Could I get your thoughts on the results in this article? And this link is a Scott Janish link. Just curious, as it basically goes against everything I thought about dry hopping. Thanks, boys, all the way from Australia, and keep brewing strong, Luke. So, if there were some indications here for everybody listening in, Luke, first he learned that's a Learnt, which you may not have heard in my
Mhm.
voice, and also the pre-hopped kits. I hadn't seen pre-hopped kits here, but I was aware that they were available overseas. So Luke's dry hopping got flipped upside down when he read a Scott Janish article, and this is examination of studies, hopping methods, and concepts for achieving maximum hop aroma and flavor by Scott Janish. And Mike, take it away.
Yeah. So I was kind of flipping through this, and yeah, it's a really good article, and I will post the link to it in our comments for this video. But pretty exciting stuff. And I've read his book, and so I haven't had time to really read through this whole thing, but kind of my interpretation of what he wrote in the new IPA was they found that they ended up with more levels of fruitiness and hop and the fruit forward flavors you want in a hazy hoppy beer were expressed better in a cold dry hop. So, I mean, we've had Scott Janish on this show, and he actually, if you look through all the shows, he did one when the book came out with Jameel and John, and pretty exciting stuff. I know Jamil's also a very adamant about cold dry hopping and not during fermentation hopping. He said with his own sensory panels, he found that dry hopping during fermentation would cause harshness and grassiness kind of flavors that he, in his experience, if I remember right. But no, I think a lot of people think that, dry hopping earlier the better, or, dry hopping for biotransformation, you have to do it, day three or whatever, So I think the thought of letting fermentation finish completely, harvesting yeast, and then dry hopping at a slightly colder than fermentation temperature, which for Scott Janish is 58 to 60 degrees, is pretty exciting. Very contrarian to some of the other methods out there you'll see. But I use it for all of my hazy hoppy beers. I actually use it for all my hoppy beers because I just found that dry hopping late just really brings the flavor without all that grass and
Mhm.
You don't have to worry about vegetal matter staying in your fermenter for 2 weeks and or 10 days. That was another big consideration, is like, where does that grassy vegetal material staying? And so the other big one that I know Jamil is all about is instead of hop dipping or early dry hopping, he just loads up the whirlpool, and hit the concept there is those hop compounds are very they will survive high temperatures. The ones that contribute to fruitiness, at least, your linalool, your geraniol, those are monoterpene alcohols that are water soluble, so they're not going to be driven off by heat the same way that um, your sesquiterpenes and stuff that are like your alkenes and stuff that they're not very soluble in the water anyways, so they wouldn't really make it through any heating or stuff like off gassing. So these kind of fruity flavors can make it through the whirlpool into the finished beer, and that's where you load up, and then you leave the grassy material in your kettle when you go to transfer to your fermenter. So
Yep.
those are the things that I do, and that's what Scott Janish talked about. And I think that can be shocking to a lot of people who have heard dry hop at 2 days, 3 days, 5 degrees before terminal gravity, all these times you're supposed to be adding in. And in his research, he kind of found that waiting till the end is is the best for what he saw. So
Yeah. So one of the things, building off what you said, Jamil, I wouldn't say he preaches this, but he will advise. Um, if you want a day two biotransformation effect, go back to your whirlpool. Get those
yeah,
compounds in before you even throw your yeast on it. And then you don't have the hop matter that technically is an antibacterial, or for better definition, it's fighting your yeast anyway. And also on the pro side, which Jamil has been quite the accomplished pro, putting those hops in on day two, that yeast is going to be thrown away. Forget about that. You're going to get the same effect from heavily whirlpooling as you
yep,
would dry hopping on day two, and you don't have to worry about disturbing your fermentation profile. Um, so yeah, so if you want your biotransformation hops in there early, hit your whirlpool a little heavier. It's probably already pretty heavy anyway. And to answer Luke's question, Scott has a lot of data and a lot of experience. Uh, and I think the proof is in his product. I read his articles and I learn from everyone that I read. He's a great follow. Keep up with him, buy his book, etc. And the one thing I don't think he said, it might, and this might be what is blowing Luke's mind. Dry hop for a day or two, not a week or two.
yeah, that's a big one that a lot of people don't think about,
Right.
or don't. They've
Literally,
heard other things. Yeah,
used to dry hop for I used to dry hop for a week. And oh man, I really want this one to be hoppy. Maybe I'm gonna go 2 weeks. You're reabsorbing compounds the longer those hops stay in there, which is like, what? What's the whole point of being in there if it's gonna reabsorb the compounds I'm trying to get out of it? My hoppiest beers, and I've made beers that are too hoppy due to hop selection, dry hop for a couple days, and then I start chilling it for a couple days, and I transfer it, and it's all separated out. And that's even, I use screens, and people say, oh, you can't get good hop aroma from screens. Let me tell you, yes, you can. It's and it makes kegging easier. But yeah, so read Scott's articles for sure. See what you can glean out of it. See how you can apply it to home brewing. Pay attention to how long and when you're dry hopping, and tell me what it did to your beers, not just what it did to your head. Give us some feedback. Tell us you brewed some of Scott's techniques, and tell us what you thought about the beers you did brew with those techniques versus the ones you had been doing. And you'll be surprised how much you get out of hops.
yeah.
You really
Everybody
will.
likes good head. Nobody likes bad head.
And I'll take any head, man. But anyway.
Oh yeah, no, not discriminating.
All right. Luke, thanks for writing in. Ladies and gentle homebrewers, we're going to take one more break and we'll be right back for one one or two more questions, and see you later. All right, we're back. This is we're towards the end of our second Q&A. I don't know if anyone on a podcast ever falls in late, Mike. Maybe you missed a previous show, and sometimes we keep themes going show to show. So if you're catching this one, if you're going in reverse, I don't think you're hurting yourself by going in reverse. But this is the second half of a doubled up Q&A. We did both of these live on Facebook. Uh, the the link that we just mentioned in the last question, Mike's graciously going to post that on the Facebook post, and you'll find this video on the Brewing Network's Facebook page. So there in the comments, I think it posts differently. You should post it to the comments on the video so they have to watch the video to find the link.
That's where I'm doing it. Bam,
Oh,
it's up there.
yeah. There you go. So if you
Posted.
can't find the link, you just have to watch the video for about 50 minutes. Did I just give that away? No. Sorry.
Gotta watch the whole thing.
That's right. Start to finish. Start to finish. We
Yep.
love our fellow homebrewers. Send us in questions, sit around and listen to us with our mindless banter about brewing beer because we love beer. All right.
Yeah,
I think we
beer.
can tackle this one,
Beer
Mike. I
good.
think we have time, and I think you're the right one to tackle it.
All right.
Wes writes in, "Hello, Jamil and John. I'll forgive him that he meant TC and Mike. That's besides the point. Please
Yeah.
consider doing an entire episode or another if I missed it on NEPA." So, Wes, we're gonna handle this as a Q&A that could develop into a future show. Please give me tricks. I'm specifically curious about grain bills, hop stands, dry hops, water profile, transferring everything, but I need to know uh, that I need to know to replicate these beers. How much and what kind of adjunct do I need? Thanks so much for all you do, Wes from Indiana. So Mike, that is quite a bit of a discussion on a recipe and a why. And he had specific questions about every last bit. And I'll say there's thousands of recipes out there. I'd like you to boil it down to what you think the keys are to making a good NEPA. You like to call them hazies. Some people, I call them both, and I mean the
I think
same
it's a
thing.
synonym.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
some
So
high points, the important parts, and
high
maybe it's not even
points.
what I was asking.
Well, I mean, to kind of work through the recipe real quick, I do think this could be a show where we kind of focus on the different aspects of the recipe,
Mm-hmm.
but to really high level, not to be too specific, I would first recommend reading Scott Janish's book, The New IPA, if you have the time and you feel like you would want to do that, because it just goes way further in. But he does still kind of leave it up to you to make your decisions, right? He's not gonna tell you what to do. And I'll try to take that approach right now. But again, when we were talking about this pre-show, I was also telling TC that I really love making hazy. It's one of the main styles I make. I've won gold medals for hazy, and but I'm always still working at it, and I'm always still trying to get it that much better. And I have so much appreciation for the homebrewers and professionals that make these things. It's such an open book for your creativity. That's one of my favorite things about hazy is you can leave your mark on it, and it's actually pretty easy because there's so many ways to do it. But for me, to kind of start off, let's say water profile. I'm not really huge on going nuts with the water. Some people want to throw 300, 400, 500 milligrams per liter chlorides to really push some kind of slickness. I worry that would become annoying, mostly because my beers, I focus on drinkability. I want you to have 2, 3, 4 of them and not have your palate be wiped out or really done sick of it. I really want you to enjoy. So my salts are kind of mellow. I do have a 2.5 to 3 to 1 chloride to sulfate ratio. So I am favoring softness, smoothness there. A big one for me that I feel a little unique in this area is haze. BJCP style says the haze should not be murky. it should be a hue. And I actually have had so many good NEPAs and beers that are hazy IPAs that, in my opinion, that it you really want a really good permanent orange juice haze, right? You don't want to see through it. You don't want to have any kind of um, clarity there. You know, when you want a very hazy beer. And so for me, I focus on getting the right balance of adjuncts in the malt bill to really promote that, what I call what is out there is called the colloidal haze, right? So a
Hmm.
colloidal, um, you know, suspension of solids in water treatment, because I am a water treatment engineer, is where you kind of get the charge balance right, right? So the particles are suspended in the water by their own um, opposite or same charges, and they're kind of pushing each
Hmm.
other apart and staying in suspension, and they'll never fall. Like it's permanent, it's forever. You could put that beer in a fridge for 6 months and pour it out. It'll be hazy as the day you made it. So I have found that wheat malt to about, uh, anywhere from 15 to 20%. And then I actually I draw back the oats because Scott Janish mentioned hop astringency related to oat content. And as well as I feel
Interesting.
like the proteins in oats have a propensity to create unstable hazes. So I only use
It's a
oats
heavier
for,
protein.
yeah. And well, yeah, there's kind of a, for me, yeah, those longer, bigger proteins like that you would get
Yeah.
in unmalted adjuncts would be, yeah, those ones that are going to pull down the beer. But I do like using oats because it does present that, again, drinkability will bring some smoothness, I feel like, to the beer. So I'm a little bit different. Some people use a lot more oats. Some people use a lot more uh, wheats, like flaked or torrefied, or raw wheats was one of the ones that I remember in my early hazy research that people were using to try to throw haze. But I always felt like raw wheats would, again, I've had I've never really used them because I've seen the results from some other people's beers where they meant to make a hazy and it looks West Coast
All
as
bright.
it West
Yeah.
Coast gets, right?
Yeah.
It ended up bright. So I've kind of dialed in that malt bill that I've now, like, I mean, this one was the same thing. And I mean, it's a pale ale. It's not even a hazy IPA. So I did use a lot less grain.
Hmm.
And I dialed back the base malt. I kept the adjuncts the same weights, and then I dialed back the base to get it down to less than 6%. Moving on to hops, again, it's a very, very opinionated, very, very up to you thing. Some people do not do any boil hops. They believe you're trying to push juice. You just want juice, 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 juice. I've always been a fan of that little tiny 5, 6 IBU worth of hop at like the 40 minutes remaining in your boil to give it a little bit of like, hey, I'm still a beer. Uh, I still gonna give you a little bit of that cooked hop flavor, aroma stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Are you using your fancy NEPA style hops? Are you going back to some old school CTZ for that 40-minute edition,
no,
or does
so
it
I've been
matter? You're doing
using.
all the above.
I don't think it matters. This is more of like a bittering kind of
Hmm.
edition. Like I said, it's only like, so for my 10-gallon batches of hazy, I'm using about a half ounce of, and I've been using Bravo. I like it's a
Okay.
high alpha, but it does bring a lot of lemon.
Yeah.
If it does leave any flavor at all. So I like, and it's very got a lot of hop survivables, as you know, some of the research has shown. So
So it's a good
I've been
base hop
using
for some
Bravo.
biotransforming,
Yeah.
etc. Nice.
Yeah. So that one's been good. And and then I'm doing a big whirlpool. Like I'm talking, I like to do double whirlpool charges. So I'll do 10 minutes, charge it again for another 10 minutes, like add more.
Hmm.
And I'm up in the 1 ounce per gallon amount of hops in there. So yeah, a lot of whirlpool. And
Is
then
that per you doing 10 and 10, or you doing 5 and 5 on that
I'm doing
whirlpool?
10-10. So 10
Yeah.
minutes, then I add 10 minutes. And
And
usually I'm kind of letting
the
the
10
the
ounces and 10
thing.
ounces or 5 ounces, because you said 1 ounce per.
Oh no, 1 ounce per is the total split into two charges.
So
So we have
five and
five,
five. Yeah, yeah,
five
yeah.
and five.
Hmm.
Yeah. And again, this is kind of what I've been. working on, and kind of
Hmm.
I'm giving you my inside track, and if you want to use
Well,
it, go ahead.
I'm
And
really close numbers, believe it or not.
yeah,
I do it as a single whirlpool, but I'm really close
yeah,
numbers to that on my whirlpool. I do anywhere from 4 to 6, maybe 7 ounces on a 5 gallon batch whirlpool. But I only do
yeah,
it as one. I hadn't split it up. Yes, we're at similar rates. I think
yeah.
that's a good. I think that you get great flavor from about that rate. Honestly, I do.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's cool to hear that I'm not alone, and that it's making good beer, I think. And
Oh
so,
yeah.
and then again, I have people that I've talked to that swear by, early dry hops, hop dipping, um, you know, at the end of fermentation, at the, kind of towards the end of fermentation. I think all of them work, to a certain extent. It's up to you to really try it out, see if you like it, see how it turns out for you. There's different hop varietals are going to do different things when they're added at different times. So, see, it's like there is a infinite combination, but for me, I've been really focusing around allowing fermentation to finish completely, and then after fermentation, and after a maturation rest where I've raised the temperature to push all that diacetyl precursor out, then I chill it to 58, and then I will do either a double, triple dry hop where, for home brewing, I found that, 2 ounces a gallon is kind of the top for me. I get pretty hot burn if I go any further than that. It'll go away, but I kind of find it's not necessary. I mean, I know that some of the pro brewers out there are going nuts. I mean, they're doing, 5,
Oh
6,
yeah.
7 pounds per barrel, which equates to, 3, 4, 5 ounces a gallon.
And sometimes I think they're talking hop equivalent. Like, they're using products. They're using
Yeah, they're doing a lot of,
Incognito.
yeah.
They're using Salvo. They're using all kinds of things. I don't. I think if they added as much hops as they're saying they're added, then they wouldn't have any beer to sell because it would all be
It would all be in the
be
more.
squeezing
Yeah.
hops to
I
get
will say
to get the
my,
beer out.
yeah, I will
Yeah.
say my method is not the most efficient in terms of beer loss, but I've also felt like I've used hop products. I haven't used the ones you sent me yet. I really want to do that. But like I used some of the like the cryos and
Hmm.
the more the concentrated pellets, and
Hmm.
I felt like, the flavor just wasn't the same. I'm kind of a naturalist, I guess, and you get more of a flavor bouquet. Like you get kind of this complexity with T90 pellets that you don't get with some of these processed hop products. And that's,
So what
your mileage may vary. Maybe you find one that it just plays well, the synergy's great. I haven't yet,
when I
so
use those products, I use them as a blend, and I don't
yeah,
back off. They tell you, oh, this 1 ounce is as good as two. No, 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 this 1 ounce is as good
yeah,
as one. I do it one for one, and I can do that as a home brewer.
yeah,
Because I do
yeah. You can
use,
afford that.
yeah, I do use cryos and stuff. Um, and I use T90s a lot, and I even use hot hash. Man, I got some Idaho 7 hot hash the other day that was ridiculous, but I blended in with
Nice.
regular pellets.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's where
I,
again, this is like my working process that I keep refining, and I just find that, I won quite a few medals with this process. So just kind of my tips and tricks from my personal decisions I've made. So yeah, and then, I'm a big proponent of getting that beer off the hops and into some sort of bright tank, and this is where I feel like people kind of look at me sideways when I say no, hazy has to be aged. I think if you really want to make the best hazies in the world, they are allowed to cold store, cold
mhm.
condition for at least 2 weeks, up to 4 weeks with your really hot. If you're, and I would say that's kind of more time with more hot, dry hop. So kind of allowing that, it's almost like allowing the dust to settle, right? Like,
Yeah,
and not in terms of like the haze to drop out. It's like
no,
the flavor to kind of show you what it is, like the fog to clear, and then you can kind of see those hops expressing themselves, and you really can start to pick out the different um, flavors and hop contributions instead of it just being kind of this general fruit, right? When they're
yeah,
very young, I've when I my hazies when they're very young, they have kind of this almost same. same flavor for all. So like I brewed this beer with 100% Simcoe, and it had that general fruit haze flavor until it got to about 10 days, 12 days in the keg and or in your bright tank or whatever you're using to age your beer.
Yeah.
And
So it's
I'm a
not
big proponent of that.
it's not a popular opinion, but my opinion is that early flavor is British L5.
Yeah. Yeah,
And you have
it's
to
just
let
kind
some of
of a
that settle out.
general,
I mean,
yeah, it's just
if
a
I buy a
fruit.
NEPA at the store, I'm going to put it in the fridge for a couple of days before I touch it. And I usually, I don't want to buy a 4 pack of all these $40 a 4 pack. And they're not that expensive, thank
Oh
goodness.
yeah.
But they're not cheap. So I'll try to buy two, and I'll wait a few days before I have the first one, and I'll wait a few more days before I have the second one, and do my best not to disturb the stuff that settles out in the can that never should have made it to the can because
Great.
because
This is good stuff. Yeah.
yeah, they think that they're giving their beers time before they can them, but the average brewery is not. They're not
They
giving
got to
enough
turn and
time.
burn. Yeah.
Yeah, 4 days in the bright, we're done. Can it, ship it.
Boom. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's where if you're home brewing and you're really going after that, holy crap, this is delicious. 2 to 4 weeks, I would say somewhere in there, and try it almost every day. Maybe give it a couple of days off if it's really
yeah.
young. Like, and you as you make these, you'll get to like, damn, that's a brand new hazy, And I would say even after the first couple you make, those first couple of days of trying it, you'll be like, yep, that's just a totally brand new. It's not ready.
Yeah.
And as you let it sit, I'm convinced that, man, they usually, like, if you were trying to feature a certain hop that the flavor, like Nelson or Idaho 7 or
Mhm.
Mosaic or some of these, like, they're going to be obscured at first, and you can't pick it out with and then if you wait, you'll start to get those really distinct, like, oh, there it is,
Yeah.
there's that Mosaic, there's that Nelson and Motueka, like that the grassy, funky lime. You kind of got to wait for it though. So it's
Yeah.
that's
It
my
really
big
does
tip.
take
And
time.
then yeah, and then I guess on top of that whole cold conditioning, none of that's happening if you don't purge the keg or your conditioning vessel properly. Like if you allow oxygen in that vessel at any point, you can just kiss that beer goodbye because hazy is as sensitive as it gets to oxygen, and those flavors are so delicate that, I mean, buy you a hazy at the store, pour it in a cup, and leave it out for a
Oh
couple
no,
hours, and
no,
it's
please
gone.
don't.
I mean, in like a
Yeah,
couple hours. I mean, we're not
yeah.
talking days. So, uh,
So Wes,
yeah.
you asked us all about making an IPA, and instead, I think we gave you as the highlights because you can go out
Mhm.
there and you can get dozens and dozens of recipes for NEPAs, and honestly, find the ones you like. You probably already found the ones you like, especially considering when you may have sent this question in, and look at the information the brewery is willing to offer you because they're all doing their own different thing, and really make sure you give it time to understand what that beer really tastes like after some selling, because that's what you're going to brew. If you're trying to match a 7 day old NEPA flavor, well, none of what Mike just told you really matters because that 7 day old NEPA flavors just they all taste the same at that point, or
Yeah,
a lot of
they're
them
all
do.
just
It's very
kind of a
similar.
very, yeah, because a lot of you, I
All
mean,
right.
juice, the juice, London Fog, London Ale 3, those are the same yeast genetically, essentially. And so, yeah, they're
Mm-hmm.
going to give that flavor. So, yeah, I hope I
All
helped.
right. I think I think those are great tips. And honestly, if if you're not picking up on what Mike said, listen to it a few times and apply some of those to your technique and to your recipe, and you'll make better and better NEPAs. Because I stand behind everything that Mike just said on NEPAs.
Thank you.
My experience
Thank
is
you. I
the
appreciate
same,
it. I
and
try.
I've had Mike's NEPAs. They're outstanding. Whew.
Thank
So
you. I
man,
appreciate it.
that's two Q&As in the books for tonight. Think it's wrapping up on that one, and then our next show planned, if plans work out for a change, 2 weeks we're going to be back. We're going to do cask ale, and we're going to have a professional brewer talking about cask ales. But don't worry, we're applying this to homebrew techniques. We're not going to talk about just what a pro does. And when I say pro, We're talking Hogshead in Denver, Colorado. They make outstanding British cask ales. So we're going to help you adapt some of these concepts so you can homebrew your own cask ale. It's going to be a great show. Mike, you're going to be there, I hope.
Oh yeah, I got questions.
Good, good. That'll make great conversation, and we'll have our good buddy Neil Spake. He'll be on also.
Great.
Everyone listening in, don't forget to help our sponsors out. By helping them, I mean get your good products from our great sponsors, and our number one sponsor here, Blickman Engineering. They've been with us for longer than I can count, evidently. I've had too many beers to remember how many years they've been supporting this show because Blickman's always been here. They make the best products I know across the board. I mean, no, there's other great equipment out there also, but you're not going to buy a Blickman piece of gear and say, man, I don't know. There's no buyer's remorse with Blickman. They just make outstanding products. I guess I just gush over them because I like their equipment so much.
And they're good people.
They
They're
are. Oh
damn
man,
good people.
that Drew show is outstanding.
Yeah, that
So
was a
if you
great
missed
show.
the Drew show, go back listen to the Drew show. We didn't label it the Drew show. You'll be able to figure out which one it is, and we'll be talking to you in a few weeks. Brew strong, everybody.
Brew strong.